We are voting for this bill. We are voting for it because it's better than nothing, but not by much. And the question you have to ask is, why does the national government so often, particularly on the housing issue, bring so much flim-flam to this parliament? And this bill is one in a long line of flim-flam housing measures. Take, for example, Nick Smith lifting tariffs and anti-dumping duties. It was the centrepiece budget announcement, and his own officials have declared that it has had no discernible impact. No impact on prices, nada, zilch, nothing. The special housing areas, the other great flagship initiative, 102 houses built in the last 2 years. 102 houses. And this bill, Mr. Speaker, the taxation bright line test for residential land bill, is likely to go down in the annals of this House as a measure that will have very little impact. And all of the informed commentators, the experts, have said from the day this government announced this bill, they have said that it will not deter speculators, it will not make any difference to the price of Auckland houses. It is simply there as a piece of political window dressing. But why? Why does the national government constantly do this? And the reason, sir, is that foreign speculators who purportedly, speculators generally, who are purportedly the target of this bill, are the friends of the National Party. The last thing the national government wants to do is make a significant difference to property speculation in Auckland, because that's where they get their money. That's where they get their support. The last thing they want to do is choke off the supply of foreign money. For years now, the national government have denied that property speculation is even a problem. And I've lost count of the times that ministers have stood up in this House and denied that property speculation is a problem. If you listen to them, you would think that it's only a question of supply. And now, with the IMF, the Reserve Bank, telling us that the Auckland housing crisis poses a real risk to the whole economy, that Auckland is teetering on the brink of the housing bubble bursting, National are panicking. They're terrified out of their wits that this housing bubble will burst on their watch. They're petrified that their inaction, combined with low interest rates, high immigration, a structural shortfall of housing in Auckland of about 30,000, and rampant property speculation, will see the bubble burst on their watch. And they are absolutely terrified about it. They're terrified that their inaction will be blamed for causing the housing bubble to burst, and they're terrified that anything they do will trigger a bust in the Auckland housing market that would undoubtedly cause major economic and social damage. That's why this bill is so insubstantial. That's why it will make very little difference, and Treasury said it will be lucky if it generates $5 million in revenue, when we know there's billions and billions of dollars worth of tax-free capital gain going on in the Auckland housing market as we speak. What is it about this bill, Mr. Speaker, that makes it such a dud? The very premise of the bill, the 2-year test, is an invitation to speculators to hold on to their properties for 2 years and a day. It will deter only the most short-term of the quick-flick merchants. Treasury warned that the 2-year limit would be ineffective. They said push it out, make it 3 years or 5 years. They said 2 years would be ineffective. The experts came along, they said the bill was incoherent, it would be ineffective. One of the most senior tax experts in the country said it was professionally confusing. It won't capture speculators, but it will capture ordinary Kiwis who, by no fault of their own, because of relationship breakup, because of a death, because of illness, were forced to sell their house. Those are the people this legislation will punish, but it will capture very few speculators, and it won't make very much difference at all. It's riddled through with problems. The definition of main home is a joke. It's ridiculous. As Clayton Cosgrove said, if you have to choose between two homes that the person claims are their main homes, it's the place of greatest connection. This is a made-up definition. It's going to be a field day. It's going to be a field day for tax lawyers. Would you like me to quote the castle again? Because if you insist, I will. Why all these problems? Because it was a chaotic, rushed political response to the opinion polls that were telling the government that the public thought they were doing nothing about the Auckland housing crisis. And Bill English was desperate to see some kind of measure incorporated into the government's budget package. What should the government have done? They could have done something much more effective and more substantial. And sir, that opportunity is still with the government. They could support my private member's bill that was pulled out of the ballot today. If they wanted to do something that would have more effect than this pathetic taxation bright line bill, they could support Labor's policy to ban non-resident foreign buyers from purchasing existing homes. It's the Australian government's policy. It has successfully channeled $30 billion of offshore money into building new homes in Sydney and Melbourne in the last 12 months. Wouldn't that be a nice problem to have? It's a policy that works, it's effective, it's actually generating foreign investment invested productively in the building of new houses in Australia. So why wouldn't you want that? But this government went off to the TPPA and it didn't even try to negotiate a carve-out for this kind of legislation to ban foreign buyers from buying existing houses in this country like the Australians did, like several other countries did, because they don't care. This national government stands on the side of property speculators, both domestic and foreign. It doesn't care about Kiwi families who are struggling to get a foothold in the property market, and it shouldn't surprise us, because the National Party is the party of speculators. It doesn't believe in productive investment in businesses and the economy. It doesn't care about Kiwi first home buyers. It's happy to sit back and watch home ownership levels fall to the lowest in 64 years. It's happy for homes in Auckland to be left as ghost houses, empty, because their foreign owners don't care about renting them out to people for people to live in, because they're happy to make a 25% year-on-year capital gain on those houses. National is happy with that situation. They're happy for people to live in cars and campgrounds and garages, because they are so petrified that if they do anything significant, their housing crisis, the National Party's housing bubble, will burst before the election, and they'll be blamed for the massive economic and social damage that will be left in their wake. Sir, the National Party, it's not fair or strictly correct to accuse this bill, the Taxation Brightline Bill, of being a poor case of legislative drafting. It's not the fault of officials. It's actually a perfectly good example of legislative drafting, because this bill does exactly what the national government wanted it to do, and that's not very much at all. It is emblematic of this government's entire response to the Auckland housing crisis. They denied it, they denied it, they denied it. They hoped it would somehow just go away. They didn't want to pay attention to it. And then for the last 3 years, while Nick Smith's been the housing minister, we've seen an endless procession of micro-initiatives, photo stunts, press releases, all designed, like this bill, to convey the impression of activity. Simon Bridges knows that's right. He's laughing. He knows that Nick Smith is a liability for this government. He knows that the public of New Zealand want to see real action. They want to see a crackdown on speculators. They want to see a policy that actually results in houses being built that people could live in. No. Not this ridiculous policy of this national government that's led to 102 houses built in the last 2 years. They want to see a crackdown on speculators, not this flim-flam. It's a pretense. It's a joke, and the public can see through it. And this government don't want to do anything about it. They don't want to move because they're petrified that if they actually take action against speculators, if they actually build houses, they will trigger a bust in the housing market, and the egg will be all on their faces.